a few minutes into experiencing this terror, this energy just shooting through my body, I was convulsing. This sounds ridiculous, but I was straight up shaking and convulsing. My girlfriend Taylor was like laying next to me. She was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like my heart, like all of a sudden my heart started racing. Seriously, it was racing. And I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I just like at some point I was like, "This is too much. There's nothing I can do here. I'm just going to surrender to this experience." And as soon as I like just let the energy start coursing through my body without like resisting it, it started to like subside. It was when I was resisting it that it like manifested itself, this energy, into like shaking and like stress and anxiety. But once I just like allowed that all to happen, it started to subside.
You are listening to the Boundless Enigma podcast with Sam Zins
and Ryan Mulkentine. On this podcast, we dive into the mind, reality, and existence itself to provide you with boundless ideas and insights. Welcome to another episode of the Boundless Enigma podcast.
Woo!
So, we were just talking, actually, a few days ago, I think just yesterday morning, I was talking to Sam, talking to you, about an experience that I had that was pretty crazy. And I think if I were to tell the story, people would be very skeptical, which I think you should be skeptical. But essentially, I had a spiritual experience over the last 48 hours, and I've just been feeling some intense emotions, some intense thoughts. Essentially, I've been working with visualizations and meditations that visualize taking in divine light into my body. And it has proved to be a bit more potent than I thought it was going to be, because I ended up feeling overly energized by it. Maybe it's placebo, but I ended up like waking up in the middle of the night 2 nights ago and like just feeling completely filled with this energy that I think I have brought onto myself with these visualization exercises. And I was just like shaking, and like I felt like an overwhelming rush of energy in my body. Dude, I think I was looking it up, and have you heard of Kundalini? I was talking to you. I told you about Kundalini. It's essentially this it's from Hinduism, from ancient Hindu philosophy, that you can activate like a sort of divine energy in your body, and it can be like super intense and spiritually potent. And I don't know, I think like maybe I've done something like that on accident, and maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know what to tell you other than it was a very anxiety inducing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having all those emotions and feelings coursing through you at one moment after, doing some kind of exercise of sorts. Yeah, that's a lot to take in, and I'm sure you're still taking it in. That's something that that's gonna take time to integrate. But what that anxiety you were feeling, what do you think was making what was making you feel that anxiety? Like, were you scared of like going insane or what?
To be completely honest with you, I was scared that like I had like opened up some
Mm.
spiritual like gate that had been locked, that has been closed off to me, and I had like opened up some energy that I had not had access to before, and I was scared that like I wasn't going to be able to like turn it off, and that it was just going to
Yeah.
completely overwhelm me, and like I was scared I was going to like end up going crazy from it, honestly. I mean, as crazy as that sounds.
No, that doesn't sound crazy at all. I mean, that's definitely a very valid feeling to have. I feel like this can kind of relate in terms of what you may have been experiencing. Like, do you know that, like, when you were a kid, did you ever have that feeling like when you're going down into the basement or something like that, and you just feel like something's like chasing after you, or or you feel like you're entering like this, like, oh, this scary environment, like, you know that feeling?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the feeling of anxiety that maybe you were just explaining in a sense. And
Dude, it
you
was
know,
different though. This wasn't just any kind of
okay,
anxiety because
what
I
was different
felt
about it?
here, you know what? The closest experience that I've had to this prior was the first
Hmm.
time I ever smoked weed.
Really?
Was when I
Huh.
smoked and I was like, it's like when you imagine like before you've ever tried any substances and you're thinking about getting high, it's like you have this
Hmm.
idea of what that's like. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get buzzed. It's gonna be kind of fun. I'm gonna feel good. And
Yeah.
then you actually smoke and you're like, holy crap, I did not know that this is what that was like. I had no idea
Right.
that like getting high would feel so intense and so crazy and anxiety inducing, right? Like, have you had a
Yeah.
similar experience of trying a substance
For sure.
and having it
Yeah, I can relate
right?
to that. Yeah.
It's totally not what you expect. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened with this. Like I was expecting to do these visualizations of like taking in this divine energy and to be like, oh, I'm going to start feeling good. Like maybe I'll lose some bad
Hmm.
habits. Maybe I'll start to just like be a little bit more spiritual and present. But it's
Yeah.
like, I think this is like more potent than I expected it to. And then it's like when you're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fun to smoke this joint. First time, I'll feel good, and then it
Yeah.
hits you and you're like, oh fuck, like wow, like this
Yeah.
is crazy. That is exactly how I felt lying in my bed 2 nights ago. Like, oh my gosh, like this
Wow.
is too much energy. Like I felt like my body just start to like I could just feel energy coursing through my body. Like it came out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, like you had like a higher, like, the situation I explained, obviously not even close to to a Kundalini type awakening, but but that what you experienced was that similar anxiety just on like this grand level. And
Yes.
kind of the way I think about these kind of things is like it's like entering a dark room. It's you can go into it in different ways, and sometimes you'll go into it and then you'll find out like, oh crap, there's a lot here. And it sounds like you may have entered one of those rooms where it felt like there was a
Yeah.
lot there. And
Yeah. It goes to show how much we don't know in general. Like we don't know is possible. We don't know that we can
yeah,
experience. Like there's just like a lot that we don't know. And
yeah.
I'm not saying that I had a Kundalini awakening. Like I'm not saying that I did. I'm just
Hmm.
saying from what I've done research on after that, it's like it sounds similar or like it was a similar type of like spiritual energy.
Yeah.
Not saying that I have had a Kundalini awakening. I'm just saying that I think I haven't. I encountered some sort of powerful spiritual energy that I am not familiar with, and
Yeah,
like I
for
to
sure.
before this, I would never. I would kind of dismiss that stuff, thinking like, oh, that's kind of like I don't know, like it just seems kind of like ridiculous, like somebody that
Yeah.
believes that like magic is real, or like somebody that believes that like you can, uh, like I don't know. It's just it seems
Yeah.
crazy, and then like I tried something and I experienced something even crazier, and I was like, I I don't know. It's just something that like I would never believe if someone told me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's so important about having like radical skepticism about things is it gives you that opening to try things like you just tried. And
Or do you?
obviously
Oh,
you found something.
right. It's like I
Like
was
it
so
yeah.
skeptical. I needed to experience it for myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I wasn't going to take someone's word for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and that's a healthy thing. I feel like when you hear radical skepticism, you can maybe take it in the way of like, oh, that sounds horrible to be, skeptical about everything. But it's like, no, it's not like that. It's being skeptical, but also, respecting it. That is the way of
Yeah.
respecting it.
Yeah. It's like it's not good to be like closed minded and skeptical, but it's also not
Yes.
good to be completely not like completely open. Like you have to
Yeah. Yeah.
be like be very intense with your skepticism,
Hmm.
but at the exact same time being open to the possibility if the facts are presented, then you have to be open to trying different things or opening yourself up to these new beliefs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that's what helps create a happy, uh, or not a happy, sorry. Well, it probably could help you become happier, but
Yeah.
a healthy mindset for myself. That's what I find.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I want to go back just for a second to what I was talking about with the entering dark rooms because I was talking with somebody the other day about that because I've been using that wording a lot, entering a dark room, because
Hmm.
it clicks with me really well because I'll have moments in my mind where like I'll be entering somewhere in my mind and I'll be like kind of scared about it. Like I'll feel that like my heart start to race a little bit or like feel it like creeping up on me, you know? And what
Yeah.
I used to do is I would, run away from it and just not want to deal with it, you know. But now I like to enter those dark rooms. Like I you know turn
Yeah.
like light the candle, so to speak, and start walking
It's
through it.
different. It's like walking into a dark room is good because you're learning something new. You're facing your fear.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had fallen into an abyss of just infinite darkness.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You had the grand dark room. You entered a
Yes.
dark mansion.
Yes. It reminded me, it was the same feeling that I had on psychedelics of when I took
Hmm.
mushrooms, and I had this just like feeling of dread of like, oh no, what have I done? I'm going to experience something terrible on
Yeah.
this substance. And then it's when I finally let go and it's like, there's nothing I can do here. I just have to let go and experience this trip, this mushroom trip. That then it completely transformed into like a state of bliss and a state of complete openness and love. And I noticed that a few minutes into experiencing this terror, this energy just shooting through my body, I was convulsing. This sounds ridiculous, but I was straight up shaking and convulsing. My girlfriend Taylor was like laying next to me. She was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like my heart, like all of a sudden my heart started racing. Seriously, it
Yeah.
was racing, and I was like, what the hell is this? And I just like at some point I was like, this is too much. There's nothing I can do here. I'm just gonna surrender to this experience. And as soon as I
Yeah.
like just let the energy start coursing through my body without like resisting it, it started to like subside. It
That
was
is
when I was
interesting.
resisting it that it like manifested itself, this energy, into like shaking and like stress and
Yeah.
anxiety. But once I just like allowed that all to happen, it started to subside, which is so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like, you know, it obviously it worked for you in that situation, and but that's also something to use on a daily basis, you know. I think we've talked quite a few times about, being that rod, like holding that rod and taking in everything
Yeah.
that your emotions have and not
Yeah.
resisting it, not trying to like get rid of that rod. You hold on to it. And it sounds like that's what you did in that situation,
Right.
and it
It
benefited
reminds
you.
me a lot of Ram Dass and his teachings, and it just reminded me a lot of like a lot of spiritual teachings I've heard about like the key is like surrendering. Like the key to
Mhm.
a lot of this stuff is just surrendering to the moment, surrendering to truth, surrendering to love, surrendering to fear. And like
Mhm.
that's when the real transformation happens, is when you surrender, when you
Yeah.
accept things as they are. And then that experience was like the universe was forcing me to learn to surrender in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's why it's so important to enter those dark rooms and
Yeah.
or dark mansions in your case, because
Yeah.
if you don't enter them, then you're going to be leaving them with that still being in the back of your head, and you're going to not it's not going to be resolved and you're not going to
Right.
understand what just happened. But since you surrendered to it and you went into that dark mansion,
Yeah.
it's it's better than it could have been.
I think whether it was real or not, like whether it was a truly mystical experience, whether it was a true spiritual experience, but maybe I had actually accessed some infinite energy. Maybe
Hmm.
I was just having a panic attack for no reason. That's
Yeah.
also completely valid, completely possible.
Yeah.
Either way, though, I learned something from that experience, whether it was mundane and it was just a panic attack, or it was something spiritually potent.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think it even matters because it's really the
No.
interpretation that you take from it
Hmm.
that is what matters, really.
Absolutely. And I like how you said that, because I feel like within spirituality and just within life, not just spirituality, just within life, people think that you have to do things a certain way, and people are going to tell you that there's this right and wrong way of doing things. But in reality, there's not. You interpret it the way you interpret it, and whatever
Yeah.
happened, it happened. And there's no
Yeah.
you nobody can take that from you. Nobody can tell you that that's not what you experienced. So,
That's
yeah, it's
true.
important it's important to
Yeah.
have your own experiences.
It's like I remember we were talking about aliens on like 2 or 3 podcasts ago, and it's like
Mhm.
you can not believe in aliens all you want, but if an alien comes and visits you and says hello to you, it's like you have no choice but to
Yeah, yeah.
like to accept that as truth. And maybe everyone else won't believe you, but if you come in, I'm not saying aliens are real. I'm just saying like if you experience something to be true in your own experience, then then that's valid, and you don't need anyone
Yeah,
to validate that for you. If it's true
absolutely.
for you, that's
Absolutely.
fine.
And in understanding that mindset and in that headspace is really important for not only how we treat ourselves, but how we treat others. Because I see a lot of people who try to tell people like that, or not they don't, sometimes it's not as obvious as like, hey, you're wrong. It's not like that, but people will like be not listening to somebody else because they think that their position is the correct position, and the other person who experiences what they're experiencing, like, that's just wrong. And
Yeah.
yeah, in your head you can think it's wrong. That's valid to feel like something's
Hmm.
wrong, but that doesn't make it okay for you to tell this other person that they are 100% wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like if someone says that they have experienced something to be true, then you don't really have a right to say that they haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
I think it's like what you can argue maybe is um like I don't know, like the meaning like that you take from it. Like you can argue
Mm.
like what was
Yeah.
that trying? I don't know. I think like you don't want to be so open. This is what I'm saying about like you have to be kind of skeptical but open at the same time. Like we need to
Yeah,
be
for
able
sure.
to learn, especially right now. Everyone hates each other in the media and politics, and it's so easy to
Yeah.
offend people and stuff. So it's like we have to be able to learn how to be skeptical and open and kind at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That, and I guess that's kind of what I meant when I was saying, like, you can have your opinion that it's wrong, but that doesn't mean that you can force your opinion onto the other person, and tell them that they are wrong.
Yeah.
You can tell them that you're skeptical about it, and but that's what communication is. I mean, that's all we're talking about here is strengthening communication, and asking questions, and because asking questions, that's how you keep open minded, because you're curious about it. If you're not curious about it, then you're probably not as open minded as you could be about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just kind of like it's kind of all about getting out of our own heads and understanding that everybody has experiences of their own, and that ours aren't the only experiences that can be had.
Yeah. Something I'm like coming to realize is like I feel like in the past, like on my YouTube channel and like different places where I'd post videos, like I wanted to like come across as like the authority on a space and like build a following based on that and say like here's what you should do to be happier, to do this. But I'm
Yeah.
realizing that like you really can't like speak like the only truths that we can really give people are what we've experienced as true ourselves.
Yeah.
And so like I think like sharing this experience is so much more like powerful than like trying to like say like this is what you should do to be happy, or like try like if you have if you're not
Yeah.
like some like I'm not like a licensed therapist, like I don't know all these different
Right.
things, like I think truth should come from your experience, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, and in theory, even a licensed therapist isn't qualified to, talk about it, because it's like the, they're not any better than anybody else. They just went to school longer. So,
Yeah.
and obviously that's an accomplishment. It's not a knock at them, because obviously, I mean, that's what I'd love to do someday. Um, but yeah, no, it's just all about in understanding your own experience, and then we can share it with others. And when you share it with others, yeah, you might change some minds, but also you might not. And you got to be ready to accept whatever the whoever you're talking to is, what they perceive it as. So
Yeah.
yeah. And unfortunately, I guess I'll speak for the U.S. Specifically. Right now, it seems like we're in trialing times when it comes to uh, communication, and
Yeah.
you know,
Obviously,
yeah,
stuff going
yeah,
on for sure.
yeah, yeah. And I think it can change, though. It takes one person at a time to understand what we're talking about here, and take the time to understand others. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, that was my little soapbox there.
Nice. Well, have you like had any encounters with truth recently, or anything like that you any experiences that you feel have been like learning experiences recently?
Yeah, I mean, I have them all day, every day. Like that's that's what I enjoy doing. So like, even
Yeah.
like, yeah, all the time. And I was telling you about the dark room thing. That was one that I had recently. But the biggest one that I'm working on right now, um, that I'm just really struggling with, is understanding myself right now, because I've told you, or I told you off the podcast, I think. Yeah, it was off the podcast where I told you I feel like I'm dealing with what seems like depersonalization or derealization. And I feel like it's similar to what you were saying about your Kundalini experience. It's like, I'm not positive that that's what it is, but it matches up. It seems like this is what it is. um so that's kind of a truth that I'm trying to understand right now, is what is going on with that.
Yeah.
It's because it's very confusing.
Talk to me about that depersonalization. Like what that's like.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain, but I'll run through the symptoms first, and we can go from there. Um, the A very noticeable symptom is, like, with my eyes, to light. They're very, very, very sensitive. Like especially at night with headlights. Like, I'll like look at a headlight and then look at the road, and just white, and then it'll like eventually like go away. And then I like the sun is super bright. Like, I can't even look at that. It like hurts my eyes. And
Yeah.
then I have like this like snow effect in my eyes going on. And so it's just a lot of eye stuff. I've had floaters. What were you gonna say?
Okay. Do you get migraines?
Sometimes. Not actually, not a lot, though. No.
Because I've heard that like people that are like visually sensitive and like can see a lot of floaters a lot of times, they have like something with their like cranial nerve that connects to their eye that like makes it so that they're more likely to have migraines. I don't know if that's
Interesting. No, that definitely
something,
could be part of it. Yeah, I know.
but
I wouldn't doubt that. Were you gonna say something there?
I was gonna say like when I was reading up on Kundalini awakenings, on the Kundalini energy, um, that like when you supposedly like activate it, um, you become like really overly sensitive. Like you'll have like this. It's like it really depends on where it activates, because what the whole Hindu system is kind of based on chakras, about these energy
Hmm.
centers that you have in your body, and you can activate like energy there, and you can ha- like essentially you can have this Kundalini energy, which is just a life force energy. It's just this like intense creative energy. Um, there's a lot of it down in your genitals, right? Because you can create life with your penis.
Yeah,
You know what I
that'll
mean?
do it.
Like there's a lot of Kundalini energy down there,
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
that's why when most people have a Kundalini experience, it starts down there and shoots up their body. But it can really happen and activate anywhere. just from what I'm reading, I'm not saying that I'm an expert on this, but from what I've read about, it can really happen anywhere. Like for me, it
Yeah.
started in my forehead, and that I've been very like sensitive to things. Just kind of felt off. I've been extra sensitive to like
Hmm.
sounds and sights in the last few days too, and so I wonder if like you just have, like I said, I just feel like
Yeah.
I'm crazy when I'm talking about this stuff. I really do.
No, no. No, dude. Yeah, and that makes me feel good that you feel crazy because I have felt crazy for a while with what I've had going on. So
I
like
think there's
we're not alone in it.
Yeah, dude, I'm glad that you don't think I'm crazy for talking about this stuff.
No, that's it's furthest thing from crazy, and I
Yeah,
it does really feel crazy because I felt like I couldn't even I tried to explain to so many people. I've gone to doctors, like I've literally I've had like a brain scan. I had a brain scan done. I've freaking gone to eye doctors, you name it. I've been trying to figure it out, and I've been having such a hard time explaining it. And then I found a video about depersonalization, and I was like, whoa, this is like exactly what I'm experiencing. So, you know, it does feel like you're going insane because it feels so unrelatable,
yeah,
having these feelings and experiences, but it's not.
definitely. It's nice at least having people around you that like are accepting of like your experiences anyway. I mean, that goes back to the point of like it's you got to be like you can't just like deny someone else's experience, because if it's their experience, like you have no say in that. Like it's just their
Yeah.
experience. You have to be open to it.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and asking the right questions too, because I feel like that's something that I was missing for a while. Is I feel like I wasn't getting the questions asked to me that I needed asked, and I realized after a while that I was trying to get people to ask me the right questions, but then I realized I can't be doing that. I need to journal this I can ask myself these questions, and I've been asking, or yeah, asking myself questions through journaling, and I'm at a much better spot than I was. I'm definitely not recovered, but much better spot than I was.
What insights have you had about like this experience of like being hyper sensitive and aware of these like different like visual things, and like what have you had any conclusions with any of this?
Somewhat, yeah. Definitely the biggest one is that it's anxiety based. So because I always knew that I've had anxieties, but I never knew to what degree, at least recently, since I've been experiencing what I've been experiencing. And I also discovered that when you are experiencing such high anxiety, your body is literally in shock, basically, because it's
Yeah.
trying to. It feels like it's in a high pressure situation, so it's like trying to protect
Yes.
itself, and that's why I like my head is feeling like a damn balloon. My eyes are going crazy. Like
Dude.
I'm tired because I'm like my body's literally overworking itself day in and day out. So and then that makes it hard to focus on things. So I've been falling behind in school. It's hard to work on things outside of school because it's like school feels like the priority. So it's just that's basically my experience, and that's what I've been catching on to is all the factors that have been affecting my life, basically.
Interesting. That thing about like you how you felt like your head was like ballooning with this all of this like
Yeah,
energy, I suppose.
yeah,
And that like reminded me of like the experience. Like yesterday I was feeling like I was just so, it's like if my consciousness dial was like cranked up a few too
yeah,
notches, a few too many notches, and I was just
yeah,
like too
yep.
much. I couldn't. I was feeling super
You're
anxious too.
yeah,
And it's totally, it's
like
a body. It's like it's
yeah.
body. It comes through in body symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a weird thing, and I think that I didn't understand that that was the case, like I didn't piece together, I like that non-duality, I didn't piece that together.
What do you mean?
So like I wasn't I was having such a hard time understanding what was going on with myself because I was trying so hard to understand what's going on in my mind without remembering that my body and mind are one.
Yes. I think this is important because a lot of spiritual traditions, specifically the Hindu tradition, talking about chakras, they believe that most issues that arise in life, physical or mental, arise from an imbalance, some sort of
Mm,
like energy imbalance.
yeah,
And so like I think you and me are both, we're very intellectual, we're thinkers, we need to understand things.
yeah,
And so we have a ton of this like energy in up in here, like up in this area. We got a lot, whereas we're thinking
yeah,
all the time, trying to
yeah,
understand. And what people like us, when we have too much energy built up in here, we need to like ground ourselves into more of our experiences, how we're feeling, coming back into our bodies, doing like breath work, um, doing meditation to feel our bodies, like coming down, like trying to like bring that our attention and focus down to our bodies and
yeah.
centering ourselves. I think is important for this stuff because the saying, where your focus goes, energy flows. So by
Mm,
focusing down and grounding yourself, this is just like, they're just ideas and hypotheses that I'm kind of like working
yeah.
with and throwing out there. But I think that there's more to this like energy thing than we believe. I think that there's like energy that we don't really understand how it works, and like that there's energy everywhere flowing around in the physical world and the spiritual and our thoughts. There's more energy than we think exists out there, and I think it's important to understand that like maybe there's more going on here than we can really understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, no, speaking on the part of grounding yourself, I definitely agree that that's important. Um and as you were saying, as a thinker, that can be hard at times, and then we find ourselves in situations like it seems like both of us have experienced recently, where we have this crazy anxiety about it because we're so like ticked up here, like we're on level 1,000 in our heads, so energy wise.
Right.
So yeah, grounding yourself is important, and I definitely don't think I ground myself enough.
Me neither.
Like, how do you ground
Definitely.
yourself? How do you do that?
How do you ground yourself?
Yeah.
I think you gotta like start taking away your focus from your thoughts, because it's like we want to understand, we want to figure out like why all these different thoughts, like, oh, I want to like I want to have these thoughts figured out and kind of sorted away, and kind of like I need an answer for this thought and this thought, but more
Yeah.
thoughts always keep coming, and you get lost in the rabbit hole of trying to keep up with all your thoughts so that you can kind of say, okay, I processed this thought, I can put it away now. We like to do
Mhm.
that, but there's always
Yeah.
new thoughts coming up. So I think what you need to do is just to say, hey, there's always going to be more. I'm just going to start, I'm going to put you on pause. I'm not dismissing you like to your thoughts, or to your thinking mind, and just say,
Mhm.
I'm going to put you on pause. And I'm going to just bring consciously bring my attention to my body and my breathing. It's like being
Yeah.
kind to that part of you, but
Yeah.
also telling it kind of like who's in charge, and like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna I'm gonna come back to you, but right now I'm gonna ground myself and thinking about my or feeling my body and breathing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, like, not neglecting your body, basically,
Yeah.
and and that's a good point, because I do feel like to a certain degree, I do neglect my body because I am so caught up in trying to solve every understanding of truth in my head. But
Yeah.
because it's so
Me too.
fun, but it's also not fun when you don't feel good because of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think going back to what you were saying, I think about you said about Hindus and how their whole thing is about having a balance of energies, and what you're doing with your mind and body. That appears to be very true, because right now I
Yeah.
don't feel balanced, and yeah, I'm not feeling good because of it.
Yeah. I'm not saying like energy necessarily means that there's like this like invisible energy
Yeah.
flowing through your, I'm just being like, focusing on your thoughts and feeding into it, you are kind of giving an energy, right? you,
Yeah.
you know, in a sense, like maybe there is some invisible energy floating around in the astral realm that we don't know about. But
Right.
I honestly think that it doesn't, you don't, I think it's just like if you are giving your thoughts a lot of time and focus, like then they're going to ramp up, they're going to keep going. So
Yeah.
what are some practices to like take away that energy and to disperse it somewhere else? It's like, well, it's where your focus is. Like
Mm.
start
Yeah.
developing a practice of mindful breathing. Breathe for 5 minutes, and then I bet you your thoughts are going to slow down because you're bringing your energy into your body.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. And I've been meditating every day for like a couple weeks now, which has been great.
Nice.
Um, But what I've noticed is the past like few days I've been meditating, and I've been using the Sam Harris's Waking Up app because I was for a while I was meditating by myself, and I used to be able to meditate pretty well by myself, but recently my mind feels very like haywire, so it's felt hard to do it by myself. So I needed some kind of something to latch onto. So I've been
Yeah.
using his app, and I notice I'll be getting very like anxious and like frustrated and like agitated almost while meditating. So that tells me that that I need to meditate, you know. And I've been powering through it, and it does feel good. It feels a lot better going through it than it does to quit.
Yeah. You know what? I think like there's so much that I don't know, or like we don't know about this like journey of trying to become better, like tap into a more loving spiritual kind of place in our lives. And like
Hmm.
I feel like I just need like a mentor, dude. Like why are they so hard to
Yeah.
find like a good spiritual mentor that's just like knows what's going on and can like, you know what I mean? Like
Right. Yeah.
can tell you why your meditation like is difficult, or tell you like what does that mean, like what should I do, you know, or someone that like has
Yeah.
experience with this stuff. It's like I'm 21 and I'm experimenting this stuff and coming to spiritual realizations and truths about the universe and things. Isn't there someone that was like me at 21 and is now 40 or 50 years old and has things figured out that I can go talk to? Like where are they? I want to
Yeah. Where
know.
they at?
If you're
Yeah.
listening, come fucking talk to me. I want to learn, you know?
Yeah, come on. We'll have a little therapy session podcast sometime, like for all of us.
Yeah. That's why I want to get this guy Baba G on our podcast. It's
Yeah,
a TikTok. He's got 150,000 followers on TikTok. He's like the spiritual guru who I want to get on here. I think he's going to come on soon, so hopefully he
awesome.
will.
Yeah, no, I love his message, and how he's so like willing to say that he loves you. Like
Yeah,
that's something that I feel like I'm not very good at. Like I think I'm not bad at loving, but I don't find it as easy as other things in life.
I agree. That's been a struggle for me too. I found, especially in my relationship with my girlfriend,
Hmm.
um, I've had to consciously open my heart multiple times because I find it closing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I find that the heart can close and open, you know?
for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's because it feels. It almost feels wrong, not wrong, but it almost feels like embarrassing or awkward, to love sometimes, but it's really
Yeah,
not. It's not at all.
there is a fear there.
Yeah.
There's a fear of like loving
Yeah.
because it's like if you're to completely open yourself up to somebody, and not only are you giving love, but in that moment you're also like open to receiving love too.
Yeah.
And if somebody rejects you in that moment or judges you in that moment when you have opened up to them, it's like, why does that? There's something painful about that. It makes you feel like sad and dejected. Like, but then there's the other hand of it, where if you open up and someone completely accepts you, which I've
Hmm.
experienced with my girlfriend. Like, I open up and she completely accepts me. It's like that's the best
Hmm.
feeling,
Oh,
to just
absolutely.
be loved as you are.
Yeah, and it like pays off tenfold to open up and not to
Yeah.
be stuck in your shell and put on this fake face sort of thing, or not even a fake face, but this like suppressed image of yourself. You know, um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, being vulnerable like that is not easy because you're putting yourself out there and you could get rejected. Um,
But why is that
but
painful?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what is
that's a good question.
why
You
is it
know,
painful to get? Because
I
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna compare this to a different situation. Obviously, very different from saying like "I love you" to someone. But say you're like in a restaurant waiting in line, and there's somebody in front of you, and you try talking to them, and then they just don't clearly just don't want to talk to you, and they like just are bland. They just clearly just want to be on their phone or do whatever else.
Right.
Like that rejection in that instance for me personally. I experienced that. I'm like, okay, whatever. They just didn't really feel like talking right now. Like they
Yeah.
wanted to do their own thing. Like that doesn't bother me. Like I'm not really phased by that. At
Right.
all. That's fine. But if you say I love you to someone and they're like, oh, that's nice of you, and like they don't
Yeah.
really like give that back to you, then it's like, oh, that really hurt. Like
Right.
oh, so it's like a uh like different set of connections there, almost.
Well, have you heard of the thing about, like, there's three versions of yourself, like the version that you show to, like, people in public, the mask that
Hmm.
you have on with your close relationships, and then the mask and then who you are when you're by yourself. It's like you
Yeah,
act
yeah.
differently and show different parts of yourself in all of those. And when you have the public mask on, it's not really you. It's just
Hmm.
like someone that you're portraying to the world that you want society to see you as. So when someone rejects that, it's like they're just rejecting the generic version of everybody, you know?
Yeah.
But if you take off that mask and you're now a little bit more truly yourself in a social situation, you get rejected. That hurts a little bit more. But they still don't truly know you because you haven't shown them your true self. It's when you
Hmm.
are really vulnerably open and strip away all of that, that's when the most potential for hurt is there, because you're the most really you.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Huh. So it hurts the most because that is the most truly you version of yourself. And when you're being truly you and somebody rejects that, it hurts a lot more than if you were just being like the half true
Yes.
you type of
Right.
thing.
And then you can go deeper, and this is one of the deep spiritual truths in Hinduism and Buddhism, is you can come to experience and realize your identity to be everything. You can come to identify this is essentially enlightenment. You can have a profound enlightening experience where you understand reality to be complete unity, completely one, and you are part of that. And so everything is you. And when that is who you see yourself as truly, is everything that exists, then when you get rejected by somebody, it's you rejecting yourself. And so you're still able to be open and loving in that enlightened state, because you realize that it's just you. It's like the golden rule:
Yeah.
treat others as you wish to be treated. Where do you think that came from? It
Hmm.
came from a many thousands of years old um, philosophy of non-duality. Treat others as you want to be treated, because they are literally you.
Yeah.
Treat others as yourself, as love others as you want to be loved, because they are literally you. You are not
Wow.
separate. You are not a separate individual. Everyone is connected in this whole entirety of the universe. And once you start to see somebody as part of your own identity as yourself, which it sounds kind of crazy, but if you can
Hmm.
see that from your perspective, then you're going to realize that when you're hurting somebody else, you're really hurting yourself. And it's not
Yeah.
good for you to hurt other people in that. It's best to love.
Yeah, well, that's super interesting. And it's also super interesting how the different views of that can vary. Like you can have that perspective of, you are everything and everything is you, and like, oh, you should love everything and everything should love you back. Like that perspective obviously sounds like the ideal perspective and is a great perspective. But then you have the other, like the opposite end of the spectrum of somebody who's like living in a war zone and feels like everything is against them, and they're horrified of everything, and they want to get out of there, so they don't care what they have to do to get out of there, so like
Yeah.
it's a different perspective. And it's just really fascinating to me how they can vary. But I feel like if you can come and talk to one of these people who has that from the war zone type perspective, if you come at them with love, you can really you can find the love in them. I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty of love, is that if you show it, you can find it.
I think war is probably so evil because it solidifies your separateness. Like if love
Yeah.
and this spiritual practice opens you up and helps you see a more non-dual perspective, it gets rid of your separateness. War solidifies your separateness because it's you versus somebody else, and you are willing to inflict incredible violence on this person to maintain your separateness, your side, the United
Yeah.
States versus the terrorists. It's like, but it's like when you come to love, if you come from a more loving perspective, from a more enlightened perspective, it's like we see now that like obviously terrorists make up like a tiny fraction of all Muslims, but at the time when that was a huge thing, it's like everyone was like Muslims are all evil. It's like we're
Yeah.
creating more separateness. We're willing to go to war for it. We're willing to kill people to keep this separateness. And but once you see more truth, become more loving, it's like they're just people like everyone else. Then it gets rid of some separateness. You become closer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and sometimes there are those curves because, at first, I'm sure a lot of people, obviously I wasn't around at that time when, I guess that, yeah, well, when did that happen? When was that? With
Nine
like the
11.
whole Muslim, is that like, because I feel like it lingered for quite a while, and it still does,
Yeah,
the
it still
stereotype is still
does.
there. The stereotype is still there. It's just not, I'm sure, as strong as it was. But yeah, I mean, like right after 9/11, I'd have to imagine it probably did. People went into like shock, and they saw the people who drove the planes into the twin towers, and they saw their, claimed they were Muslim or whatever. So I'm sure that
Yeah,
people, yeah, immediately went like, oh crap, it's Muslims. It's, and didn't think
yeah,
to think further because they were in such shock.
definitely. Yeah, it's have you heard? I learned in psychology this year that there's something called a doubly distinctive event that makes people
Mm.
like that creates these beliefs is when you have um something that's already unique, which is a Muslim person. Because as in America, people are Christian for the most part, and so when you encounter someone that's Muslim, that's already kind of like, oh, this is something interesting. Like, it sticks out in your mind if you see someone that's Muslim.
Yeah.
But then you have a second event that's associated, um, for this, in this instance, the destruction of the Twin Towers and the killing of thousands of people. That's a very distinct and jarring event. And so when you have two distinct events, you
Hmm.
associate them and they become doubly distinctive, so that it sticks out in your mind. Now you have like two distinct events, and you cannot like it fuses them in your mind. And so now
Yeah.
you have a super, super strong stereotype for that subset of people or whatever the distinctive event is or the distinct thing. So it's really hard to like get rid of those because our mind does that, merges those doubly distinctive events.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how our minds do that, and yeah, that just goes to show how important it is to remain open-minded, or as open-minded and skeptical as possible, because our minds will do that. It
Yeah.
sabotages our own belief system basically, and it wants us to believe what we're seeing and hearing,
Yeah.
and it wants us to believe the people that we want to believe, and instead of
Hmm.
like taking the time to maybe do our own research and look into it.
I think it comes down to cognitive resources. If you have the time to go do that, great. But our brains are very efficient, and so stereotypes are easy. They're
Yeah,
efficient for our
yeah.
brain. So it's like when you stop and really think about it, that's when you can start to kind of dismantle these stereotypes and like things in our brain. It just you have to know what things you have to go look into more to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that requires sometimes a lot of time, and it also just requires the want to do it, because not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Sometimes we just need a good laugh on here,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's
Do
a
you ever
lot
just
of heavy topic. Do
yeah.
I ever just what?
Do you ever just like find yourself like laughing like out of nowhere, just at something silly or stupid?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? All the
I
time.
love those. Those are the best
Yeah. Yeah, like
moments.
why not be, lighthearted, Not everything needs to be, taken so seriously.
Yeah. There's value
That's
in both.
because yeah, there is. There's value in both. Exactly. Yeah, no, shoot, laughing at stupid things is sometimes the best. Like no, those are the best times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's
Yeah.
that's how uh we were for quite a while. Like we did that. Like we were laughing at stupid things like on steroids. That was our
Dude,
existence for a while.
we really did. We had so much fun when we were younger. We used to like everything was hilarious to us.
Yeah,
When did we made a shift like in the last few years of like we
yeah,
still laugh together, but like there's a shift that's happened where like we have just the same intensity that we would laugh at something, we now have the same intensity of like diving into topics and like discussing
yeah.
seriously,
That is so wow, interesting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you know?
I feel like we were both so like goofy that we are now like so serious. Like not I don't want to say so serious. 'Cause
Right.
I don't think I'm too serious or anything like that, but I guess it's just vastly different compared to, laughing and giggling every
Yes.
5 seconds. I mean, what kind of podcast would this be if we were just laughing and giggling every 5
Yeah.
seconds?
True. I mean, I don't know, maybe that'd be good for people.
Maybe it would be.
But
You're right. Yeah.
it's like we gelled so well like goofing around. It's like I feel like we have the same level of like
Yeah.
working together. Like it flows in just the same way, but in a completely different direction.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
It's
It
so
does.
strange. It's
That is
cool though.
really strange. Yeah. It's interesting how we've lined up, over the years.
Right.
I know we've talked about that, but yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, because I remember having a conversation with you. Like we had a few years where we didn't really talk at all. I think we just kind of we
Yeah.
separated for a while and like we went to different high
Yeah.
schools, and I think that's when we kind of didn't really talk.
Yeah.
And then we both started becoming more intellectual and like philosophical. And when we came back together, like we had lined up perfectly so that we were both on the same level. Whereas like
Yeah.
3 years prior, we were just goofy and like having fun. And without developing together, we developed separately the same way and came back together at the same level.
Yeah. That is so crazy to me.
It
That is
is.
so crazy to me. What I just I'm baffled by that. That's all
It's
I can
I don't
say.
know, man. I don't know. It's like maybe it's just a coincidence, but there's maybe like this relationship was meant to happen in this lifetime. Like we were supposed to be friends, and like we were like maybe there's something else going on here.
Yeah, so
You know what I'm saying?
somebody's pulling some strings for us.
Possibly, maybe the universe is pulling some strings.
Why not?
maybe. But
That's awesome, man. All right.
anyway, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up on that note,
All
on a
right.
good note.
Yeah, on a good note.
And any
Well,
last words?
last words. Stay open-minded.
Love.
Love. Laugh.
Love yourself, love
Be a
others,
little
laugh.
be a little serious sometimes too. Laugh sometimes. Don't be too serious. Do it all.
Yeah. I
Anyway.
think as those signs say in people's homes, live, laugh, love.
Wow.
Inspiring.
Very true. It's wow. Very profound. All right.
Yeah. On
All
that
right.
note,
Thanks for tuning in.
peace.
Love you guys. Thanks for listening. See you next
Live, laugh,
time.
love.